This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Magnet. Yunxiao was taken aback by the shape of the statue. He sucked in a cold breath and felt a chill run up his spine. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, but he couldn't understand why there would be a statue that was exactly the same as the one in the outer space in the treasure of the North Scorpion sect. However, the one in front of him was only constructed from the Southern Fire golden crystal essence. Although it was huge, its value was far inferior to the one in the Heavenly Shine Imperial Gold. At this moment, he finally came to a realization. The entire altar wasn't constructed from the source of Southern Fire golden crystal essence. The only source of Southern Fire golden crystal essence was this female statue. Young Master Yun, what's wrong? Opposite him was Wu Lin, who could not see the statue behind him, but could see Yunxiao's shocked expression, so he could not help but blurt out the question. I see. Tan Dijuan, who was on Yunxiao's left, also noticed the statue. So the true Southern Fire golden crystal source is here. Such a huge statue, what a great fortune this is. His eyes were filled with greed. He had almost forgotten the mission of the group and was staring at the statue with an infatuated look. Not good. Suddenly, Yunxiao was taken aback and said in horror, "Close your eyes and don't look at the face of the statue." Originally, the face of the statue was strange and difficult to see clearly. But, under his gaze, it began to gradually become clear. But as the face became clear, Yunxiao suddenly felt a tremor between his eyebrows, which brought him back to his senses. Even with his powerful spiritual power, he had almost fallen into the trap without realizing it. It was already too late. Apart from Ying Lin, who had his back to the statue, the faces of the other three people began to turn dull. The surging vital qi in their bodies also dissipated, and their hands hung down. Their minds were completely controlled and they stood in the air. Gao Lin also noticed the strange state of the three, and he was so scared that he didn't dare to turn his head around. He could only say in horror, "What's going on? What's wrong with the three of them?" "Oh no," Yunxiao said. "Hurry up and seal the three of them." As soon as he finished speaking, he performed a hand seal. It was so fast that only an afterimage could be seen flashing in the air, and it was the first one to hit Tan Dijuan. Tan Dijuan's body trembled, and then he lost consciousness and fell from the sky. Having succeeded in his attack, Yunxiao immediately charged towards Sun Jiming. However, it was already too late. Sun Jiming's originally dull face suddenly revealed a ferocious expression. He raised his hand with a loud roar and pointed his finger in the air. In an instant, his body glowed brightly and shot out dozens of finger radiances that broke through the air. At the same time, Xiao Minghui also made his move, but his target was Gao Lin. A huge, overbearing sword qi condensed in the air and then slashed down at Gao Lin. This sudden turn of events caught the two of them off guard. Yunxiao hurriedly brandished the Northern Heaven's Cold Star sword to block the finger light. But, although Sun Jiming was not a peak martial venerable, he was not far from it, and the strength of the finger light was not something he could block. His body immediately turned golden, and several finger lights shot into his body, leaving bloody wounds and immediately injuring him. Then, Little Gold, the calabash, had just reacted. With a roar, it enlarged its body and stood in front of Yunxiao, saving him from danger. On the other hand, the gourd Little King Kong's body was made of 9th-tier materials. It was not afraid of the attack of a martial supreme at all. It strode over in the air and started fighting with Sun Jiming. On the other side, Gao Lin dodged Xiao Minghui's sword light and took out his brick as well. The two of them started fighting. Gao Lin's brick was also an 8th-tier profound artifact. Although it wasn't as powerful as Wu Yan's Mirror of Calm Lake, it was still an artifact that he had refined for many years. As such, he was able to turn the situation around with a single strike. It was a pity that Mo Xiaochuan had dispersed most of the brick's spiritual energy, so it was now a draw against Xiao Minghui. After being injured by Sun Jiming's finger beam, Yunxiao fell from the sky and stood in the hall. He looked at Mo Xiaochuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground and unmoving, while healing his wounds in silence. He was in no hurry to attack, as he was eager to buy time until the battle above was over. However, things often went against his wishes. When Mo Xiaochuan opened his eyes, a sharp aura shot out from them. It was not the red color of poison, but instead, it was clear. You've recovered? Yunxiao was taken aback and asked with great joy. A huge wave surged in his heart, and he could not suppress his emotions. Mo Xiaochuan glanced at him coldly and said, "Who are you?" His voice was extremely normal, and he didn't seem to be possessed by an evil spirit. His eyes were filled with spiritual light, and he didn't seem to have lost his mind. He raised his head to look at the sky and said, "So you're from the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce." Gao Lin, do you still have the face to see me?" Yunxiao was immediately certain that Mo Xiaochuan's mind was very clear, and he was overjoyed. "Xiaochuan, what's up with the possession of the evil spirit earlier? How are you doing?" Mo Xiaochuan looked at him with a puzzled expression and asked, "Who are you? I've clearly never seen him before, but why do I feel like I'm familiar with him? You're the one who fought with me earlier," he shouted in shock. The young man who used the sword technique to kill the monster. His eyes lit up and his body couldn't help but tremble at this moment. His emotions fluctuated greatly as he said, "Who are you? Why does he know the demon-slaying sword art?" He seemed to have guessed something and said sorrowfully, "Could it be that you're the last disciple master accepted?" Thinking of this, 2 lines of tears flowed down his cheeks. He said in grief and indignation, "I hate Mo Xiaochuan for being so disappointing. He's actually unable to find out the cause of Master's death. Now, he's even trapped here and I don't know when he'll be able to see the light of day. I'm so hateful." He slammed his fist on the ground, causing a red glow to appear. As his emotions fluctuated violently, a red aura began to appear around his body, and his eyes gradually turned red. "What?" Yunxiao was shocked. "Xiaochuan, what the hell is wrong with you?" Mo Xiaochuan's face was filled with pain as he suddenly shouted, "Go, quickly go. That evil spirit is going to control my body." He rolled on the ground in pain, like a carp jumping on an anvil. He covered his head with both hands, trying to protect his spiritual altar and consciousness from the invasion of the evil beasts. Yunxiao's heart trembled. He rushed forward and quickly performed an incantation gesture with both hands, forming a seal that he slapped down casually, trying to seal him in an instant and drag him into the Divine Realm tablet. But, the moment the seal fell, the evil spirit's beast demon form reappeared, its terrifying face roaring and blocking Yunxiao's seal. Yunxiao suddenly opened the immemorial heavenly eye between his brows and shot out a stream of phoenix divine fire toward the evil spirit. The evil spirit's eyes revealed a look of fear. After howling a few times, it realized that the other party's divine fire was not as powerful as it had imagined. It was not as afraid as before. It continued to surge out of its body, blocking the divine fire. Yunxiao was very anxious. He knew that his opponent was also a fire elemental spiritualist, and had a natural immunity to fire elemental powers. Although the true phoenix flame was strong enough to suppress him in terms of level, what Yunxiao could use was very limited. As the 2 sides were in a stalemate, his soul power was quickly exhausted, while his opponent was continuously absorbing the fire element in the surroundings, gradually becoming stronger. In just a few breaths, Yunxiao felt that he could not hold on any longer, and his heart was filled with anxiety. If he could not take this opportunity to drag Mo Xiaochuan into the Divine Realm tablet, it would be even more difficult when the evil spirit completely occupied his body. Pig, since the other party is a fire element evil spirit, it's natural to use water to subdue it. The demonic dragon's voice rang out from within his soul. Yunxiao was so angry that he wanted to curse out loud. He naturally knew that water could suppress fire, but at this moment, just as he was feeling depressed, he suddenly thought of something and was overjoyed. He hurriedly circulated the small ball of energy in his dantian. As the spiritual energy slowly flowed through his body, the inextinguishable golden body once again bloomed with divine light. The immemorial heavens suddenly closed and retracted the true phoenix flame. When it opened again, it turned into a crescent blood moon and shot a pale blue light toward the evil spirit. Inside the light blue light, there was half a drop of water. It was small but crystal clear. It refracted a beautiful blue light and rushed into the evil spirit. It was the water of the 100 rivers that Wu Yan had collected from the mirror of Calm Lake. Roar! The evil spirit's body was broken into by the 100 river water, and the red color of its body was immediately reduced by more than half, as if it had been seriously injured. It let out a pained cry, and roared towards the sky. The evil spirit's aura dissipated in the air as it roared. The water of the 100 rivers was a mutated element that was close to the water origin. It directly suppressed the energy of the southern fire golden crystal, causing great damage to the evil spirit. Yunshao cried out. Naturally, he would not let go of this opportunity. He mustered all his strength and quickly performed an incantation gesture. A golden light condensed in front of him and then descended from the sky. Hiss hiss hiss. The evil spirit let out a hissing sound that was like a leaking wind before it was slowly absorbed into Mo Xiaochuan's body. Mo Xiaochuan's entire body fell to the ground. Yunshao was almost exhausted after this attack. He staggered forward, slapped Mo Xiaochuan with his palm, and sucked him into the Divine Realm tablet. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this moment, the battle in the sky was basically coming to an end. Although Gao Lin's profound level weapon was damaged, his strength was still higher than Xiao Minghui's. He quickly suppressed Xiao Minghui and directly hit him until he spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell from the sky. Originally, the two forces were fighting openly and covertly, so Gao Lin naturally wouldn't let this opportunity go. His every move was vicious, and he wished he could shatter the other party's dantian. He would only be happy if he directly crippled the other party. However, after Xiao Minghui lost his mind, he also became fearless. Under the fierce battle, Gao Lin was also in danger. On the other side, the gored little Vajra also became more and more courageous as the battle progressed. When he fought with Sun Jiming, his body was his greatest reliance. It was completely made of 9th-tier materials. This was the true indestructible golden body. From the beginning to the end, he had suppressed Sun Jiming. Very quickly, he also broke through his opponent's defense with a punch and directly blasted Sun Jiming down. Gao Lin looked at the unconscious Tan Dijuan and the severely injured Sun Jiming and Xiao Minghui, and a strong killing intent flashed in his eyes. This was undoubtedly the best time to kill the three of them. As long as he got rid of the three of them, the three big sects outside, as well as some small local forces, would be easy to capture. As long as he got rid of these people, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the local forces and sects. However, there was still hesitation in his eyes because the Big Dipper sect had Zhang Linghua, a martial sovereign, in charge. On the other hand, the Chamber of Commerce's headquarters could not send a martial emperor to help at this critical moment. I know what you're thinking, Yunshao gave him a look and said, but you'd better behave yourself. Although these three aren't good people, I won't allow you to kill them before this matter is resolved. As soon as he finished speaking, the calabash little King Kong stepped in front of Gao Lin with heavy steps. A steady and heavy aura exuded from his raised fist, almost suffocating Gao Lin. Xian Lin was shocked, and he laughed awkwardly. Young Master Yun, you're overthinking it. We should work together. Even if they've been possessed, I'll never abandon my teammates. That's not my style. He looked around and suddenly exclaimed, Where's Mo Xiaochuan? It's good as long as you don't have any rash thoughts, Yunshao said. President Qian has also exhausted a lot of his energy. I'll rest for a while and see how I can help the three of them get rid of the evil art after I recover my energy. As for Mo Xiaochuan, he said indifferently, the mission has been completed. You don't need to worry. The mission is complete? Gao Lin's pupils contracted as he looked around, but he couldn't see Mo Xiaochuan's shadow at all. He couldn't help but feel suspicious. But, it was obvious that Yunshao would not tell him. Although he felt very uncomfortable holding it in, it was not appropriate for him to ask. So, he flew down embarrassedly, sat cross-legged on the ground, and began to cultivate. The huge female statue was right behind the two of them. Gao Lin didn't dare to turn around to look at the face of the statue, and he could only absorb the aura of the southern fire golden crystal essence from the statue without any restraint. The aura was even denser than when he was on the altar. After suppressing the evil spirit in Emo Xiaochuan's body, Yun Xiao was exhausted, both physically and mentally, and could not exert any strength. He immediately let the little guardian deity gourd protect him by his side and entered a state of cultivation with all his heart and soul, greedily devouring the astonishing vital qi and fire elements. Although the fire element was strong, it was easily resisted by his physical body. His soul directly materialized in the Divine Realm tablet and appeared beside Mo Xiaochuan. Staring at the familiar face, Yunxiao's eyes were filled with unspeakable melancholy. He cast a few incantations into Mo Xiaochuan's body and made him sit cross-legged, while he himself also sat in the air opposite him. He performed a sword incantation gesture with 2 fingers, and a little fluorescent light flickered on his fingertips as if he had entered a certain state. Both of them remained motionless. Time passed by slowly. All of a sudden, Mo Xiaochuan's eyes snapped open. They were completely red, and his face was as ferocious as an evil spirit's as he opened his mouth and roared. Mo Xiaochuan's aura surged as he pounced on Yun Xiao, as if he was going to tear him apart. Yun Xiao's eyes were still half closed, and without even looking, he pointed a finger at Mo Xiaochuan. The fluorescent light at the tip of his finger hit Mo Xiaochuan between his eyebrows, and his entire body was immediately shaken off. Mo Xiaochuan rolled around in the air in pain before turning into a red light and fleeing. With a thought, Yun Xiao's figure immediately disappeared from where he was and reappeared somewhere several miles away, just in time to intercept Mo Xiaochuan, who was trying to escape. He said expressionlessly, "I don't know if you can understand me. This is my territory. You can't resist. If you know what's good for you, then obediently surrender your head. Seeing that it wasn't easy for you to transform, I can spare your life." Roar. Mo Xiaochuan roared repeatedly in the air as the red aura on his body grew stronger and stronger. His hands were also changing rapidly, and the wind and clouds in the surroundings surged. Strange phenomena appeared in the sky as a huge golden seal appeared behind him, then he clapped his hands and threw them at Yun Xiao. Heaven and Earth Seal? This power was indeed not something that a peak martial venerable could display. However, there was not a trace of Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens in it. "Xiaochuan, you're still struggling to fight against this evil spirit, aren't you?" Yun Xiao sighed and waved his hand as he shouted, "Cloud scatter, seal break." The aurora of the seal of heaven and earth was suddenly split apart, turning into countless rays of light that shot out in all directions. They scattered in an instant. Mo Xiaochuan's face was filled with fear. He roared and tried to escape again. Yun Xiao's eyes gleamed with ruthlessness as he said, "It seems that you are an evil spirit that is very afraid of death. Since you are not willing to come out, I will beat you until you come out." With a single thought, he appeared beside Mo Xiaochuan and punched him in the chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. After that, Yun Xiao generously used Mo Xiaochuan as a target to practice his skills. He was covered in wounds, but his face was still as cold as ever. No matter how serious these physical injuries were, he could still save them. However, if the evil spirit refused to leave, he had no choice. Moreover, his training method was much crueler than a beating for these disciples. Mo Xiaochuan's eyes were filled with fear. However, it was useless no matter how he tried to escape. He continued to run. Yun Xiao frowned and said to himself, "This evil spirit doesn't seem to have any intelligence. It knows that it can't escape, but it still fled. We might not be able to force him out even if we continue fighting like this. What should we do?" "Why don't we try this?" he said after a moment of silence. He clenched his fist, and a dragon's shadow emerged from his body, circling around him. It was the demon dragon, and it seemed to understand Yun Xiao's mind. "You want me to enter that kid's body and force the evil spirit out?" "That's right," Yun Xiao said. "Judging from the current situation, the evil spirit has no intelligence. I'm afraid it won't come out unless I kill Xiaochuan. You're also a pure spirit body and have the aura of a true dragon, so you might be able to force it to escape. But remember, don't hurt Xiaochuan's soul." Understood, the demon dragon replied. This kid is also my favorite among your many disciples. If I can't use my dragon chi to scare the evil spirit out, I'll come out first and then we'll have a long-term plan. The demonic dragon circled a few times in the air before charging straight at Mo Xiaochuan. It entered the space between his brows and disappeared. Mo Xiaochuan's expression froze for a moment, followed by a look of extreme fear. He held his head and howled in the air. An intense red aura spread rapidly from his body, and he seemed to have gone mad. Yunxiao looked at him coldly without any emotion as he muttered, Xiaochuan, this is also a tribulation in your life. It's up to you whether you can survive it. The demonic dragon can only assist you, and only your own divine sense can dispel the evil spirit. I can only help you to this extent. A series of shrieks rang out in the air as Mo Xiaochuan's body was twisted, pulled, and even expanded and shrunk. It was clear that the battle between the demonic dragon and the evil spirit was intense. Mo Xiaochuan's eyes flickered with a red light. They were no longer as blood-red as before, and it was clear that he was trying hard to regain control of his consciousness. Yunxiao's eyes narrowed when he discovered this, and then he waved his hand. The scripture of the Great Expansion divine technique immediately appeared in the air, flickering and disappearing. The powerful force contained in the characters turned into a line and flew into Mo Xiaochuan's forehead, then rang out in his spiritual altar and sea of consciousness, stabilizing his mind like an immortal chant. As the power of the Great Expansion divine technique's words took effect, Mo Xiaochuan sat cross-legged in the air and formed a hand seal. A faint green aura appeared above it and condensed into a green lotus that emitted a holy light. His entire person immediately appeared in a peaceful state, and the red color on his skin gradually faded. Yunxiao's eyes shone with great joy. This sign indicated that Mo Xiaochuan had already taken control of his body. However, he did not dare to be careless as the evil spirit had not been removed. He cast a mind-clearing incantation to clear his mind and resist the invasion of external forces. A moment later, the mark of a demonic dragon emerged between Mo Xiaochuan's eyebrows. It swam slowly, then turned into a dragon shadow and shot out, hovering around Yunxiao before disappearing into his body. What's the situation? Yunxiao asked hurriedly. How is it? Why don't I see any evil spirits? That evil spirit is indeed not very intelligent, the demonic dragon said solemnly. It's like a demonic beast. But for some reason, even though they were clearly very afraid and panicking, they refused to come out. I've already forced it into his aperture, and it's been sealed by the power in his body. Mo Xiaochuan must have done it of his own accord. He should have regained his consciousness for now. Yunxiao frowned. Force into an aperture? Wouldn't that leave behind a huge hidden danger? This is already the best result, the demonic dragon scoffed. Mo Xiaochuan would have to rely on his own strength if he wanted to force him out. As long as he kept improving, he would be able to force the evil spirit out one day. As long as you seal the aperture and don't let the evil spirit possess you again, that'll be enough. How difficult is it to do that? Yunxiao asked. It wasn't easy for this kid to get to where he is today. I didn't expect that he still hasn't suffered enough. He's the one I admire the most among your disciples, the demon dragon said. Among the disciples, he was the one with the worst talent, but he had experienced more ups and downs than the other disciples. I'm also more optimistic about his future achievements. Perhaps only he and young Emperor Hao Lian can become peak martial sovereigns. Yes. Yes, Yunxiao nodded and said, I was born in a super family. Although the cultivation resources I have are far more than ordinary people, the cruelty in it is not something ordinary people can understand. Xiaochuan must have suffered a lot in order to reach the martial emperor realm. However, stepping into the Nine Heavens realm is only the beginning. The demonic dragon was silent. They were once at the peak of martial arts, so they naturally understood that the path of martial arts was vague and boundless. There was no end to it, and one could only seek it up and down.